Welcome to the Pop Docs channel. My name is Joseph, one half of the Pop Docs, joined by the other half of the Pop Docs, my sister Denny. Denny, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think both of us had a trip. I started a new job.
Right.
It's been a busy couple of weeks. So we haven't been able to keep up with our individual reviews of The Wheel of Time. And it's hard to believe, at least for me, the season is over. It feels like this season just began.
It seemed like it went by really fast.
And I
Mind you, it was only 8 episodes, so it's kind of on the shorter end. But yeah, it seemed to go by pretty fast.
Yeah, and I think partially too is when you release 3 episodes on one day of an 8-episode season, it's going to be a quick season. So 5 weeks altogether, 6 weeks, whatever. Anyway, it's over. Unfortunately, in my view, because now I think we have to wait another 2 years, unless Amazon finally gets wise, gets rid of Rings of Power, and just goes full bore with The Wheel of Time. And in this video, seeing how we did miss a couple weeks in reviewing the different episodes, I think we were just talking before we started recording. I think we got through 3 or 4, somewhere around there. So, since the season has concluded, I thought in this video we can briefly talk about our thoughts about the final episode, the finale, and then jump into some season 2 wide questions. And I'll get your thoughts on a variety of topics related to season 2, and then cap it off with some speculation about season 3, if and when the production picks back up. So, with that preamble, and I should also mention, I oftentimes forget, we're talking spoilers, obviously for season 1, season 2 of the Wheel of Time show, but we'll also potentially talk spoilers about books 1 through 4. The reason I include 4 is because we will get into some speculation on season 3, and so that will inevitably involve talking about book 4. So, with that, Denny, your thoughts on episode 8 of season 2, the finale of season 2?
Overall, I think it was a pretty good finale. It's interesting if you look at it from a just show standpoint. I thought it was a strong finale for the show. Like lots of action, lots of guessing of like what's going to happen next, and all the characters are coming together. You get to see all the characters like come together, and they're all reunited. You get to see some big bad moments. So I thought it all came together pretty well from a show standpoint. Very engaging. From a book standpoint, probably a little bit of a different opinion. Just because some things were changed here and there. But overall, I thought it was pretty good for a season finale.
What worked for you, what didn't work for you, either as a show or as a fan of the books watching the show, adapted from those books.
Okay. So I would say that my favorite thing, I guess, in the finale, and what has been for the past few episodes since we weren't able to review those individually, was that I really enjoyed the Egwene and Seanchan with Rena, their dynamic and that whole storyline. I just thought they did a really great job at showing it, and I thought Egwene was just amazing, just from an emotional standpoint, how the character, went through it and dealt with it, and then in the end, came out of it conquering Rena. Although, ironically, they were the only 2 that survived the blast, which is kind of like, okay, that's a little far-fetched and very coincidental.
And the Damane bracelet or the Damane collar just like rolls next to Gwen's.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, that's a little too on the nose, maybe. But overall, I really enjoyed that storyline, and I thought it continued to be interesting in the finale.
And Egwene is true to her word because she did tell Rhaena she was going to kill her.
Right?
She did.
Yeah. She sure did. So I really enjoyed that. I thought the horn blowing by Matt and the heroes coming, I thought was I thought it was good in terms of like sticking with the books. I mean, that's what Matt did. He blew the horn and the heroes came and he had this moment and it was great. Unfortunately, I felt like the season didn't really set this character of Matt up well to make you really care about this moment for him, unfortunately. So I guess from like a book standpoint, it's like, look at the heroes, that's pretty cool. Like they actually like did the heroes and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. Unfortunately, I just didn't really care about Matt in that moment. So I was like, it's cool that they still stuck with it and he still blew it. But,
Well, let me ask you, what did you think of the design of the horn?
I'm trying to remember it. Honestly, I don't think it really stood out that much, which isn't a bad thing. Like, it doesn't have to be like this fancy, kind of tacky, typical fantasy type horn. I'm fine with something fairly simple.
I just wish it looked like a horn. To me, it looked like just a very expensive jug of wine or water.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that.
I mean, I assume, and I appreciate this if this is the motivation. I assume they wanted something that looked alien because I think it's from the Age of Legends, I believe, if I remember correctly, at least from the books. Which we don't really know, I don't think, in the show because they spend so little time in both the first and second season talking about the horn.
Really talking about it, yeah.
Despite this being about hunting the horn putatively this season. Very little hunting going on of this horn or discussion of the horn in general.
They kind of hunted it down. kind of. They kind of ended up there, but as prisoners with the horn.
And thankfully, Lanfear was there to just hand them the box. Here, loyal.
That was probably the weakest part of the entire episode, in my opinion, because it literally was just like here, just give it to them, and they didn't even try to figure out how.
And they ran into Perrin, just randomly ran into Perrin on the streets of Falm.
Again, very coincidental. That all this stuff just happens.
Yeah, which I they have not set this up in the show at all, but that's kind of a Taviran thing. So at least I think there's like book logic they could explain at least the seemingly random interaction, but that's not set up in the show at all. And also, it's just ridiculous that they set up like Ingtar's planning something to get the horn back, and then it just turns out, oh no, just thank God, Celine, Lanfear, whatever, is there. And the other question I had, did she also give him, Ingtar, a new suit of armor? Like what? And why didn't Loyal as like the only Ogier-sized outfit in Falm, the Da Kovale robes that he was wearing?
They're like, this is all that could fit.
And then Massima, I don't even know if did you know that was Massima, or do you remember Massima from the books? That was who the other guy was, who we hadn't seen since episode 3, I think, maybe 4. I can't remember. I think it was 3 because that's where they first ran into the Shan-Chan. And so he just like pops back up. I'm back. And why? Well, because we want him to see the dragon because that is a plot point in the books. And so I don't know if that's an Easter egg or if they're actually setting this up. But it was that whole sequence of events. And we'll get to Matt and the dagger because I did not like that either. And it's so funny, like, oh yeah, like no one knows how to open this thing. Oh, okay. Just slam the lightsaber into it and burn it.
Lightsaber.
That's basically what the thing was. Was a lightsaber. Basically, I mean, it was melting locks. It was like watching Qui-Gon at the blast doors. But anyway, so I think I told you this after watching it. I didn't like at all how they got to the blowing of the horn, but I still got chills. And I almost had the Matt tear from the first episode roll down my cheek, just because I just love that scene from the book. If I had never read the books, I don't think it would be as meaningful to me. I'll never know because obviously I can't go back in that world. But I think the only reason I really liked it was because it was that echo from the book. And let me ask you the other question I have for you: a pseudo fake death. Uno's back, sort of
as a hero,
the hero of the horn. That was quick.
Yeah.
What's the criteria? I guess there's no application process. He was just he killed a couple weeks ago, and now he's part of the cadre, he's part of the group. And he's near the front too. He's got like a premium spot there. He's right there, like almost even with Arthur Hawkwing. So I guess his afterlife is looking up, or whatever it is. The other thing too, I forgot this. I recalled this. What happened to the horn? Because Matt hands the horn to the woman, and then the woman does some kind of flippy flare thing with her arm in the horn and puts it behind her back. Is it just gone now? Or I wonder, is it like Dragon Balls, where once you make the wish, they just get shot dispersed across the world, and the hunt begins anew. Call the hunt. Send out the bards and the town criers to gather the hunters. We're doing this again. Funny. Mm-hmm. So it was just kind of very strange. It was like, okay, because presumably they're going to need that at the last battle. Maybe. Not just to get across a walkway past some Shanshin, but whatever. So I'm glad they kept it in there. I think they had to. It was just such an important moment for the books. Like, and they didn't change, obviously. Just how they got there made like so little sense. And so I guess that does lead us into Matt. Like, what do you thought about Matt, and specifically this episode?
Specifically this episode?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was pretty good in this episode. I didn't mind him. I didn't mind his character arc to this moment, or this moment for him. But I mean, how he got out of his room, the whole thing with Pat and Fane, and so I love that actor who plays Pat and Fane, and he's kind of like a scene stealing. Like anytime he's on screen, I'm like, oh, he's interesting. I love watching him. He plays a good psycho. So I enjoyed watching him and his interaction with Matt, but the whole dagger, I agree with you. The whole dagger situation was just, I don't know. I was just kind of like, this is
speechless in a bad way.
Silly. I was like, this is just kind of silly. Like,
well, and I don't know.
And how it all connected with like, and we can talk about this, but like how it all connected with like Ishmael and how he, saw Matt killing Rand and everything, and how it kind of led up to that. In theory, could make sense and be like a good story, like a good plot line to the story, because it is interesting how but it just wasn't executed. Again, the execution just kind of fell flat. It didn't work as well as I kind of
the whole sequence confirms Min's viewings. They're like the books where they are going to come true. You just don't know exactly how they're going to become true, because there was some at least in the fandom there's some speculation early on. I was like, oh well, maybe the viewings are kind of some insight into what could happen, or another world or something like that, and so it's not necessarily going to happen. But I think this kind of confirms, no, her viewings she's seeing the future in some way, and she just has to interpret it. But yeah, everything else I agree with you. It just made no sense, partially because they seemingly just reversed their rules on the dagger. Because if I'm not mistaken, Loyal gets stabbed by this dagger in the first season. In the episode 8 of the first season. I mean, Pat and Fane saying over them, and you hear the which is the cliche knife going into someone's belly and being pulled out. And it's the dagger. And Loyal doesn't have Rand's wound. Loyal's not turning black and like crumbling from the outside. And apparently now it can melt stuff, doors. It can melt ancient boxes that have locks on them all over them. And I agree with you. I love Pat and Fane, but talk about just a waste of this character. Like, I don't even, why have him? You could have Bob from Tar Valon there, and it would basically be the same. And I love the actor. I just wish they would give him something to do. And the way they've used him so far, like, he's not going to be able to fulfill the role he does in book 4, unless you torture his kind of plot line to somehow hook him up with the White Cloak. So I guess you could argue, or maybe him losing the dagger now is going to like drive him insane, but it still wouldn't really explain the animus he would have to go back to the Two Rivers if they're going to follow the book 4's storyline. So I don't know what they're doing with Pat and Fane. Almost like he feels like an Easter egg at this point. And the way he like ran away screaming, I thought was cartoonish. When Matt got out, he was like, God, Gods, oh my gosh, gods, I'm like, where'd this guy come from? He's nothing but cocky confidence every time he shows up. And he's the only one that takes his hood down at the Dark Friend Social. Now he's running away, screaming in a cartoonish voice, running away from Matt. It was all very, very strange. I did like, though, having said all that, I did like the way the wound looked, because it looked almost like there were like teeth, like biting into Rand. It was really horrifying.
It looks pretty brutal.
Yeah. And so clearly this is going to be the side wound from the books that he can't ever fully heal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you like
Although
that?
Mysteriously, Elaine can heal it initially.
All we've seen her do with the one power is brew beer or wine or whatever fermented drink it was. That's all she's been able to do. But now suddenly she can heal unhealable wounds that are emanate from some dark evil from Charlotte. It's just with Nynaeve sitting right by her doing nothing. Apparently, just can't without the ability to channel. And that's a whole other thing with Nynaeve. Like what was her purpose in this? And like
literally nothing.
Did they feel bad
Talk
because
about a waste of a character?
Yeah,
literally nothing.
It felt like to me the writers were like, well, we gave her so much screen time in the first part of the season. We gotta let other people speak lines and do things and emote. So Nynaeve, just kind of just sit there, just stand there. We want you for we want you there for the Avengers shot at the very end, but we don't want you to do anything while you're there. All right, two more questions from me on episode 8. Okay. Before we kind of jump into a season-wide look here in the video. One was, what did you think about all the Moraine and Lan stuff? They're just hanging out on the beach, a beautiful locale. Loved it. There. Mm-hmm. Having a heart-to-heart, touching foreheads in a very intimate way.
I guess they needed something to do with them. So why not have them end up on a beach where supposedly Lanfear put them there for that reason, and just have them, blow up some Seanchan ships out at sea. And but let's have like a little bit of a dilemma, integrity crisis a little bit about whether it's okay to kill innocents, but Moiraine's fine with that, so Lan's just gonna have to be okay with that. And I guess he is.
Well, but who are the innocents though? You talking about the Seanchan on the ships?
Well, no, that's what Lan said. He's like, what if there's innocents on those ships? Like,
I missed that.
On those ships. Oh, yeah, he basically told Moiraine that. That's when Moiraine was like, I will kill thousands of innocents if it means, basically defending the Dragon Reborn kind of thing. And Lan was just like,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Turned around and just started killing the soldiers that mysteriously appeared on the beach. Why in every single show we watch, mysterious soldiers appear out of nowhere on random stretches of land?
Lanfear had him waiting for him. I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
It was so random.
It felt like a video game where it's just like, well, we need the player to have some action here. So, a horde of soldiers, and he gets to fight them. And it did feel like that, like, okay, Lan needs to have an action scene here because we got so much crap for him just wandering the Blight in the first season. Okay, just spawn a bunch of NPCs over here that he has to fight. And he obviously discharges them quite easily. And, I did like, though, when she was going to, destroy all the ships, when he kind of, went into that little crouch. That was kind of just a cool look, I think, with her channeling in the foreground and him crouched watching her back. So that was cool. But it's, for me in this episode, again, as with the entire season, these scenes just, in my opinion, dragged the whole show down. And I literally started checking my phone for what was going on X Twitter when their extended scenes were on in the episode, because I don't find it captivating. I don't find it interesting. I thought the what was unmasking of the Bond moment went on for an eternity.
Too long.
And I get that this was supposed to be the emotional crescendo of their arcs for this season, but I just have not been invested in it, and so I just thought this was detracting from other cool stuff happening. There's a war going on, not a war, a giant battle going on, where on a beach with these two, touching foreheads together.
So
It's like, God, can we just move on, please? For the love of the creator, can we move on to something more dynamic, more interesting than this? And so that's just dragged it down. And then I didn't realize Moraine had the power to level an entire fleet of ships, but apparently she does.
Apparently she does. It was a cool moment to see like that kind of power happen, but at the same time you're like, what? You can level whole mounts of ships and stuff, but you didn't even bother trying to lift a finger to Lanfear? Mm-hmm. Or anything like that? Okay. Yeah. But then again, it also took her like 20 minutes to summon the power to do that. So, I mean, maybe...
It's like Goku having to charge up his spirit bomb. It's just like 5 episodes. He's just standing there with his arms up, charging this thing. And she's out there looking like the inflatable people.
Oh my gosh.
At a used car lot.
She so does. Oh my god, it's the perfect image. Oh,
so this is one of the related questions I had to Moraine's storyline. What did you think of the weird fire dragon that coiled its way around the tower, and I think it like tried to breathe fire or something? It like roared, I believe, at the very end.
It roared several times.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that? Did you like that? Did you not like that?
It was like your cheesy fantasy CGI moment that you see, that just like, well, I know that in the books, I don't think it had the cheesy dragon fire, right? It just had the banner moment, right?
Yeah, there was no. I don't believe there was a fire dragon because they actually in the books they have a literal banner. I mean, it has
right,
like a coiled
banner
dragon or whatever. Yeah,
that they carry with them around because it was wrapped around like the horn, I think, at one point or something.
It was involved in the horn because Arthur Hawkwing did say like we can't like go into battle until the banner is unfurled or whatever. So I think Perrin held the banner in the fight. But but really in the books, I can't remember if the banner was projected in the sky, but in the books, like Rand actually fights a Shamael in the sky for everyone to see.
In the sky, right? Yeah, they're like you can see their battle. Yeah,
and I'm okay with them not having that because I think that would look weird in live action
and look really tacky, probably.
Yeah. I don't know how any other way to do it because I agree with it. It looked weird with the weird CG fire dragon.
I mean, it just
slithered up the tower.
Cheesy CGI. It was just kind of cheesy CGI.
And I guess the question is now: does every time the dragon has to go into battle or like enter a city, is Moraine going to summon this fire dragon to kind of hang out behind him, so you get the cool shot of him and the Avengers team behind him at the tower with the dragon breathing in the background? I mean, why not? I suppose it's imposing.
No.
They'll
probably just have like someone will have embroidered and stitched a banner by that point, like magically, and so they'll just carry around a little banner with the dragon on it, I imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I could see them like kind of like have it where people are knitting stuff that looks like what they saw from because in the books there are like illustrators that were like creating things and sending them out, pamphlets or whatever, of the fight in the sky. But yeah, so okay, the last question I had to get away from Moraine and Lan before they dragged down this video with their storyline was, what were your thoughts on just the whole end sequence? Did you like the whole end sequence? Shamael's fate. We could throw in Lanfear and Moghedien as well.
Oh, I loved Lanfear and Moghedien's little teaser at the end. That was awesome. I loved it so much. I thought
best part of the episode for me.
Best part
was that scene.
I agree with it. I agree with you. It was like going back to that kind of like the creepiness of the beginning of this season with Ishamael. That just like creepy, dark vibe, which is what I loved about this season. And you get another look at another Forsaken, and you learn that they all broke out. Oh, well, Ishamael released them, but they're all released. Yeah. They're all released on the world now, and you get to see Moghedien, who's cool. But I've only read through the 4th book, so I only know her really from the 4th book. Which in the 4th, she just seems kind of like this, I don't know, kind of ditzy like quirky. I mean, mind control, like powerful, obviously, but just kind of not as powerful as they made her seem in this episode with the teaser of going up against Lanfear. And she just seems like kooky off her, like her rocker. She just seems a little insane and like that creepy, insane kind of woman. But she seems really cool. I'm super stoked to see her in like future seasons.
Well, I think what they were trying to suggest was she had set a trap for Lanfear, which is the only reason she was able to get her in that web weave, was because she had laid a trap before she came in the room. Because I believe in the book she is supposed to be weaker in the power of the Lanfear, but she's all about working from the shadows and setting traps, and I don't think she's ever had like been one to attack just outright. And so she's all about schemes and whatnot. But yeah, I loved it. And did you know that Shamel released them before that scene? Or is that kind of the first time it dawned on, the other Forsaken are out there now? Because
I don't remember. I don't think so.
There was a moment, and I was like, oh, he did it. He released them. When he goes in to confront Suroth, and he walks in, and he dusts his hands off. But there's no reference to any, like, why he's got dusty hands or whatever. And I was like, he did it. He broke them out. Right there. He was coming from his room where he's busted all the Quendiar.
That's cool.
And it was also obvious they were going to get released. When Lanfear's like, oh yeah, I'm going to give you all these discs and you go dump them in the ocean. I'm like, there's no way that this show would ever just discard would-be villains like that. So I'm like,
100%.
Okay, something's going to happen here where Lanfear's going to fail because they got to be released onto the world. And I am so pumped to see what they do with this because I think the strongest part of the show so far has been what they've done with this Forsaken. They've done such a good job with the Forsaken.
Oh yeah,
so,
they've been some of the most interesting. They've been more interesting than the heroes so far.
Yeah,
the villain, the bad guys.
In a lot of ways.
The writers really like the bad guys right now.
The only thing I will say, the one thing I don't like about it, and maybe I think hopefully we get answers, is why Ishamael just turns to ash. First of all, why he just stand there and get stabbed like that? It was really awkward the way it was shot, I thought, where Moran just walks right up to him with a sword and slowly sticks it in his chest, and he just kind of stands there and gets impaled and then turns to ash. So I'm guessing only certain Forsaken have eternal life, or immortality, because I don't know why. Maybe it's an intention thing, like you have immortality, but you have to want to live, and so if you don't, then you just turn to ash and blow away on the breeze. I don't know. So, because I thought all Forsaken were going to have immortality, and that was going to be one of the scary things about them was how you can't kill these people. Although there is a mechanism in the book, arguably, that I think will come into play to kill them. But so I didn't like the whole thing with Ishamael at the very end. None of what he did made sense unless he wanted to die. That's the only explanation for why he didn't circumvent Egwene's shield. Because I had no problem with Egwene. She's very strong, and she had no offensive power. She was just putting up a giant shield. It ultimately failed. But you can't tell me this guy who is either equal in power with her or more powerful from 3,000 years ago when they were far more advanced in the study of the One Power can't figure out a weave or a set of weaves to get around her shield. No. It strains credulity to the point of breaking.
Yeah.
And so the whole sequence with the Ishamael at the very end and when the Avengers are fighting him just made no sense to me.
No.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Sense.
So, yeah.
No,
literally. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, literally, it made no sense. Other than to the point of what you said about whether he just was okay with dying in this scenario. Like, I got stabbed. Like, cool. Whatever.
See you in another life.
Yeah. Like, see ya later. Which, could be what he ultimately wanted. Because, at the end he said, I see nothing, and it's beautiful. Or whatever. So maybe that's what he wanted in the end. But yeah, because, I mean, dude, when Matt appeared, I can't remember if it was an illusion or if he just, teleported or something. But the dude literally, dodged a throwing spear. You can't tell me he just can't, walk around.
It was an illusion. he said something about like, oh, such a simple illusion weave.
That's
or
right.
something
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. Such a simple illusion weave. And I was like, come on, man. You can't just like walk around Egwene's like shield or something. Like, I don't know, like something like that. Drop something from above. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, come on, bro.
Yeah,
You're like one of the most powerful Forsaken.
And they can teleport. They can travel and stuff. And so why doesn't he just, okay, this plan is ruined. Bye. I'll see you next season. Boop. Like Moghedien did, where she just kind of fell back into that dark portal and disappeared.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't. There wasn't enough explanation as to for me as to what was going on with Ashamel in that whole sequence. And it was just I liked the idea behind that sequence because as from what I've heard, it was trying to show they all need to work together to defeat evil. Sure. And so that's why they all showed up there. They all, except for Nynaeve, had a hand in defeating Ashamel in some capacity. I guess you could say, well, Nynaeve helped Elaine up the stairs so that she could heal Red. But other than that, she didn't do anything. And I don't even want to get in on the ghost shield or the magical shield. Apparently, the heroes can transfer weapons. It's like the Force Skype ability, the Force Amazon Prime ability, where you can like hand lightsabers to people across space and time. Whatever. It was just weird, and there was just no setup for it. I guess. So we'll wrap up our discussion of episode 8 real quick. But so just giving my general thoughts. A lot of cool scenes that I really liked, especially the last one with Lanfear Moghedien. Gets me really excited for the future of the show. But very little setup and a lot of illogical circumstances and outcomes. I'm trying to remember what I think I texted you right after I saw it was something to the effect of some great stuff surrounded by a lot of profoundly dumb.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much on point.
That's how I would sum up the finale. Having said that, though, before I turn it back over to you, way better than this finale in season 1.
Yes,
hands
100%.
down, way better.
100%. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Any final thoughts about episode 8? Did you have?
I don't think so. The only two things that I'll mention that were a bummer was one, Rand didn't fight Turok, which I know was a big scene in the book.
Yep.
But also, whatever. I guess they needed to save time. But then again, Rand can magically all of a sudden be able to use his power in like pinpoint precision.
Yeah. You did miss one person though.
Well, I guess you gotta miss one. But just illogical, and it's like, what? Okay, whatever.
And it better not be like, oh, Lanfear taught him that. Like, whoa. That was, they never set any of that up. That she even could do that. So yeah, right. No, I agree with you. It was weird because they kind of put themselves in a box because if he had fought him with a sword, especially with all of his guards around him, that would have been even worse the way the season's gone. So I think this, even though it makes no sense as you point out, is the best thing they could do, unless it was just they would never have that meeting or interaction. Right. So since that's one of those things where it felt like they had these great ideas for cool scenes, because it is cool with Rand in his Jedi robes facing down Turok and his honor guard.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
But ultimately, very bad, very poor setup for it, leading to an illogical outcome, as you say.
Well, just like per usual, Rand didn't do much, and it's like, I think we've been saying this the whole season. Like, is he going to be the Dragon Reborn? Are they going to let him? Like, he barely has done anything to show like any of his power, and so it's like, okay, no fighting skills really yet. No one power except for like this moment. So it's just kind of like
the fire arrows.
But yet everyone should bow down to him when the dragon appears, and you're like, dude, you've barely done anything.
Well, and he just feels like he's getting yanked from place to place by other people in the story, which happens to a certain degree in the books.
In the books, to an extent, yeah.
He still does make a lot of his own choices, and he does have expressions of power in the books too. And we just really haven't gotten
more
there.
Next season. Yeah,
I think they have to.
The fourth book.
Yeah, and that really, I think, is where he comes into his own as the dragon. So it would make sense to have that in season 3. They have to have it. If they don't have it in season 3, then I think they're really dropping the ball on his character. But if they do give him those moments and really show that growth and his acceptance of being the dragon in the next book, I think I'll be okay with the way they've treated him in the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, character development.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I do think, though, this raises, I think, a fundamental problem that they have from kind of a production standpoint. And to a certain degree, this involves writing, but they have too many characters for the amount of time that they have. And I really felt that in this episode. Because it just felt like they needed to visit so many different people to tie up all of their storylines, including incredibly small characters like Bail Doman pop back up. We just talked about Turok, in the grand scheme of things, very peripheral character. And in 8 episodes that are roughly an hour in length, it just felt to me fine. This is the first time it really felt to me they have too many people in this cast.
Felt a little rushed.
Everything felt rushed because they needed to touch on so many different stories, and that was the real feeling I had coming away, particularly from this episode. And I mean, this, like, Matt was the perfect example. This entire season, it's set up that he is going to run from doing the hard thing, even if doing the hard thing is what's needed to help his friends. And the last time we saw him before this episode is he's being cradled and caressed by Shamael after the hallucinogenic tea that he probably got from Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, the overdose he went through.
Yeah, and Shamael says something, to the effect of, like, it just needs to stop. We need to break the wheel. And then Matt looks up and says, how do we do that? That was the last time we saw him. And in this episode, all of a sudden, no, I don't want the dagger. Okay, I'm going to break out of here with the dagger. I'm going to help my friends. I'm actually going to run toward the danger to help Rand and Egwene. When there's been no setup between the Matt in episode 6 or 7, whatever it was, and this Matt. It just, like, immediately he seemed to turn into a different person because the plot needed him to. And that was how I felt with, like, almost everybody in this episode. And I think it just comes down to the fact that we had too many characters and we wasted too much time with Lana Moraine. I think for me it always comes back. We'll get maybe. Do you have any other thoughts? Because this might be a good segue into kind of a more season-wide scope. Because I think a lot of the season was weighed down by Lan Moraine, their story.
No, I agree with that. The only other thought I had was the sad moment when Hopper died.
Oh, I forgot about Hopper. Yeah.
Poor Hopper. He got stabbed. Well, he got stabbed.
He got brutally axed. In the back. Yeah. And then
what's his face?
Jeffrey Bornhold. Yeah, the Daddy Bornhold.
Daddy Bornhold. Yes. Yes.
Don't worry though, Perrin axed him back. So.
Oh, she sure did.
One axe swing deserves another, I guess.
Yeah, but it was so sad because you saw him hop away.
He started to have to fly. I think his soul ascended, presumably to the Wolf Dream.
That's what he does in the Wolf Dream. That's what he does in the Wolf Dream. He flies. So maybe that's setting up the Wolf Dream for next season for Perrin. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, another fake death in the Wheel of Time. It's become a Wheel of Time trope. No one's truly dead. You might see a lifeless corpse. That doesn't mean they're dead, though. Not the Wheel of Time. Not the Wheel of Time.
Which means Ishmael's probably not dead. He's just probably...
Oh, he's definitely coming back somehow.
Dust will come back together, and he'll pop back up.
I think at some point you're absolutely right. He's coming back.
Yeah.
There's... Like at the end of season 5, the post credit scene on the finale is going to be him walking out of the shadows and say, or he's going to be coming down the stairs eating an apple like what was the captain Barbosa in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, it was so good. Yes.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? That's a fake death I'm okay with because I love Ferris, the guy who played Ishmael. So he was
so good.
He was great, and I just love. Okay, well this gets into season wide stuff. So. Okay. First question for you. Your 3 favorite characters from this season. Now, having seen season 1, season 2, who are your 3 favorite characters you've seen on screen because of what they've shown on screen? Not because of, they were my favorite in the book and I just can't let them go. I can't quit them.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be... Well, I know 2 off the top of my head, but the third I'm struggling with. Okay, so I would say the 2 off the top of my head is is Leandrin, which you probably anticipated.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I completely forgot about her because she disappeared after
She just
the 7th episode, 6th episode?
Seventh. No, 6th. Wait, 7th.
I think it was the 7th because she told Carrion, yeah, and told Moraine's nephew, kill her.
Right. Yes.
That's right, yeah. It goes back to my thing, too many characters. There's so much going on in episode 8, I completely forgot about Leandrin because she wasn't in it.
Well, yeah, well, then again, like, how would she be involved in the last episode? So it's kind of like, it kind of makes sense.
It makes sense,
but it makes sense. So, which is probably why I appreciate it. They didn't mess with her character and somehow have her magically there to, like, cause mischief, because it's like, that didn't happen.
She survived episode 8.
And I felt like her character was solid throughout this entire season. I saw nothing wrong with her character throughout this whole season. And she was great in the first season, too. So I just feel like she's been, overall, an amazing character. So she's probably my favorite character so far. I would say second would probably be Ishmael, because he's just like that, phenomenal actor again. But I loved all the scenes with him. He's just such a dynamic, like, he's just so complex, and he makes you think as a villain, which is always terrifying to think about. And so I thought he was phenomenal. I do think they did his death dirty, unless they bring him back somehow. And maybe he, like, purposely killed himself for a reason, for what maybe we'll see later on. Hopefully. There's
it's all part of my plan.
Alluding to that, because, yes, I hope he comes back. My third favorite is hard, because I really loved Lanfear.
God, you're all in villain mode. Is this because it's like Halloween? It's villain.
Maybe. But also, I'm telling you, I think the writers love their villains in this show. So I really loved how I don't really love how she was introduced, like her actual storyline of how she, as like an innkeeper. I was like, oh, okay. But, I mean, the actress was phenomenal who played her. Her persona was just so amazing of how she approached the character. She's such a kind of terrifying big bad, but in a different way from Ishmael, which I thought was interesting. I will say, like, near the end of the season, she was kind of getting one note as just, like, this cocky, badass bitch, basically, and it started to become kind of one note, so that's why I think I like the Mo Gideon, like, interaction with her so much, because you got to see her a little, like, oh shit, like, this is kind of terrifying now.
Well, up until that point, she had won. She had beaten Ishmael.
Right.
And she thought
she was like,
was going to rule the roost. Yeah. And then she got caught in the spider web. So I'm guessing you're going with Lanfear. That sounds like you've talked yourself into Lanfear.
I really love Lanfear. However, I will say the one character that surprised me, because I thought she's been kind of, not that interesting throughout even the first season, but then this one, was actually Egwene near the end. When she was captured by the Seanchan, I thought the actress just did a phenomenal job of showing, like, the emotions with her and kind of her dark side and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how she is in the next season, to see if they kind of continue that through, and see how she's affected after having gone through that. So I will say she was a good surprise as a character. I was like, oh, I love this. This is phenomenal. So...
Yeah, so...
Those are my three.
Yeah, well, I can't give you too much crap, because number 1 and 2 are Lanfear and Ishmael in either order.
So good.
They're 1A, 1B. I don't care which one's 1A, which one's 1B. They're just written, I think, very well. And it's the one thing I really hoped for coming into the live-action adaptation, was that the writers did something to make the Forsaken formidable and scary, where they... oftentimes, in my view, in the books, aren't. And I think they've accomplished that. And then Mogedian's introduction was very scary. I mean, it really leaned into, like, the horror elements of the Wheel of Time. And it's such a great setup for the other 5 that we haven't even met yet. And what kind of hijinks they can get up to, and skullduggery and whatnot. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go. Having said that, this also has led me to desperately want, and I prefer to actually watch, I think at this point, an Age of Legends show. I don't need this current timeline. Every time they do 3,000 years ago, I'm like, yes. Where is this a backdoor? Is this a backdoor pilot? And if it's not, can it be? Because I'm far more interested in what happened.
Pilot.
What happened 3,000 years ago? Not just between Lews Therin and all these people, but I think it'd be fascinating because it's basically the prequel series in Star Wars. It's about how this technologically advanced, almost utopian society falls and crumbles and ends up in the breaking of the world. And so I think it's fascinating, and just the characters I find far more fascinating. And part of that's because I think you might be right. The writers seem to prefer writing, or at least they really lean into their writing for the villains in this.
A villain.
And Shamael has such an interesting ethos and view on life. And as you said, it's kind of like, well, I guess in that world with reincarnation stuff, yeah, you kind of see where there's an argument like, man, coming back to life just to face this harsh world, that really is kind of cruel. So he's one of those villains where at least there's a believable reason why he's doing what he's doing. He's not just twirling his mustaches and saying he wants to cause havoc and chaos for the fun of it. So yeah, and they showed Lanfear and her ability to manipulate things, manipulate people, conspire against even her would-be colleagues and compatriots. Which is also a great thing that they've started to capture that one of the biggest failings of the Forsaken in the books is they're all working against each other. And in part, that's what allows a lot of the people on the light side to win. Because even this is one thing I would say this season, these Forsaken are so powerful, this show could be over in like 10 minutes. Like they could just pop in, kill every main character, and then pop out and like rule the world. But they can't do that. You don't want to have a show. And so they have to like build in limitations. So for Shamael, for whatever reason, he wants Rand to become a dark friend. So he's not going to kill him. And so this is what I'm also really interested to see, because now these are six Forsaken. 6 new Forsaken, right? I think it's 8. Who are now, as Moghedien says, we are not that close to the dragon. That was your biggest failing, Shamael's biggest failing. So, okay, if that's true, okay, you better be formidable, and you better give me a reason why they're not just traveling in to wherever Rand is sleeping and killing him, like Luke tried to do to Kylo Ren. But we'll see. I realize now I haven't given a third, and just like you, I'm kind of struggling. I feel like I should give someone from the light some props. So, you know, I will give it to Donald Finn. Not Matt.
Just as the actor.
Just the actor. Because I think it's not easy to jump into someone else's shoes, a character that someone else originated. Nope. And I thought he did a great job. And I think in episode 8, he finally felt like Book Matt. And I think a lot of this is because Donald Finn can inhabit and show, depict Bookman. So yes. I'll throw a wrench in the plans and my own premise. I'll take issue with my own premise here. I think my question's premise, and go with Donald Finn as my third favorite at the moment.
That's a good one. I like it.
Okay. What were your 3, in your view, weakest elements of the season?
Oh, gosh.
And what were your 3 favorite parts, strongest parts, however you want to define them?
Oh gosh, that's a lot.
It's 6 things.
That's a lot.
You can count that on 2 hands. A lot to remember. Oh my god. All right, I can start off. I will start with the stuff, the weak stuff, or in our view, what didn't work for us. So maybe I should put it that way. Stuff that didn't work for us.
Okay.
That may have worked for other people that really love the show.
Good phrasing.
Which I still love the show, by the way, just to put that disclaimer.
For the record.
Love the show. Excited for season 3. There's a lot of stuff, though, that did not work for me, was weak for me. Beginning with Lana Moraine. Everything with Lana Moraine, again, I just tuned out. And I would incorporate within that the Alana and the Warder stuff, because Alana and the Warders were largely in this season as kind of an analog to... An analog? No, I don't think that's the right one. But basically, they were in it because of Lan. And Lan's relationship or lack of relationship with Moraine. So I'll group them all together. I thought it was time we could have spent better with the other principal characters in the show. It detracted from the show. For me, every time they came on, it dragged the show down and slowed the show down. And I couldn't wait until we moved on to a more interesting character or set of characters, as the case may be. Number 2, I think that would be number 1. And that's far and away number 1. 2 and 3 are probably interchangeable. This really annoyed me though. We finally get Elias. I always pronounce his name wrong.
Yes,
like Pat and Fane. I'll put Elias and Pat and Fane together because this is the same complaint. Okay. Wasted characters.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much potential, and maybe Elias will come back. And now that I think Perrin's kind of like full wolf, I think he's got the golden eyes for good now after what happened to Hopper. And so maybe part of like going back to the Two Rivers is going to be him reconnecting with Elias and learning more. And so maybe we'll get more. But at the moment, at least for this season, I'll limit to this season, so disappointed in the way Elias was brought in. And it felt almost just kind of like a nod to the fans, like, yeah, he's from the books, but it served almost no purpose whatsoever. And I mean, even though he saved Perrin from the Shanshan, the next episode he was just, okay, go your own way, do your own thing, whatever. I'm gonna go hang with my wolf brothers, and just left. We never saw him again. And so I thought a complete waste of the character, at least in this season. Like I said, hopefully maybe they'll give him more to do going forward. And then the third thing is just all the illogical things that happen, or the convenient things, or the convoluted sequences from episode 8. It really everything, all those conveniences, all of the illogical moments just took me out of the episode, and for me, really brought it down. I spent most of the episode saying, like, how could that have happened? How'd that happen? How does that make sense? Well, that's convenient that she just showed up in the treasure room and got the box and ran to Loyal and armored up Inktar. And so those would be my 3, if I had my top 3 weakest elements of season 2. Do you have some now, or do you want me to give you my favorite moments?
No, I have some. I have the weakest ones. Yes,
okay.
Those 3. Okay. I would agree with the Moraine and Lan, so I'll just throw that out there because, yes, they were the most uninteresting characters of this entire thing. And for all the other reasons that you listed. But I think I voiced that from the very beginning when the show was starting. And I was like, when they released the poster, because I was like, what the hell does she have to do with this entire... like, she's just gone most of the time. So what are they going to do? So I was nervous to begin with. And it paid off, because look, it was terrible. Not great. You were
vindicated. Your anxiety was vindicated.
See? Look, she took up like half the freaking season.
So and I will say, I don't know if you agree. Would you agree with this? If between Moraine and Lan, at least I found Moraine's more interesting than Lance.
Of course,
Lan was really just a waste of time in a lot of ways.
Well, not only that, it just made no sense, and this will connect to another of my points. But I would say, the second one was kind of, how would I phrase this? Kind of like the inconsistencies with each of the characters' storylines. Like, for example, Nynaeve started off super strong and like paid a lot of attention to her, but then all of a sudden, like the last 3 episodes, it just like fizzled and died, and she was like this weakless thing, and you don't have any explanation for it whatsoever. Yeah. So that was really strange. Or like Matt's storyline, which is in the beginning kind of just like a little constant, you're not getting a lot, he breaks out, but then he has like this epic moment at the end, but you don't care about him because he literally had like no like story development really, and a random drug overdose with Ishmael. It's like inconsistencies with each of the characters. Like Egwene barely got any attention in the beginning, but then she had this really strong like ending, and then Rand's just had like nothing throughout the whole season.
Rand's there. He's there.
Rand's just there. So I think that was just kind of, and it may, boil up to what you said about how there's just like too many characters, and so they like paid attention to them, but then they were like, oh shit, we need to start paying attention to these guys over here. And so I think there's just like a lot of inconsistencies across the board, which was kind of, yeah.
Was that 2 or 3? Or was
that was only 2. and my third one is just like is just it's just more of like a personal opinion thing, not really like holistic. It's just that, again, they set up the Xiantian as being like a very evil presence, and you get that in the first couple of episodes. Well, it's just like at the end, you would expect like this epic battle and like this fight with Turok, because they set him up as like, you know, the High Lord, and even Lady Suroth as being like, you know, this kind of conniving evil.
Well, and she was basically doing whatever Shamil told her to.
Right. But. Which is fine. But, like, at the end, even with, like, the Dumane and stuff, like, they only just go up into this tower and are, like, firing things off. But they just kind of come off as not, like, as badass as I kind of wanted them to be. And what they kind of set them up as, and then they just kind of, like, fizzled out at the end. Which is
yeah.
Made me sad.
I mean, there were some, kind of getting back to what I was talking about with, like, illogical sequences, but putting aside how kind of ridiculous it is that 5 or 6 children with the lamps can create a mist that covers this entire plane.
Right.
I'll put that aside. I'll accept that. But for the 2 guards at this little gate to be like, what's going on out there?
Well, they're supposed to be like yeah.
Get inside and close the door. Like, what are you doing? I mean, it's ridiculous.
You didn't get to see any of the magical creatures.
Any
of their creatures.
In the mist, when the mist was coming toward the people, they backed into the grocery store and closed and locked the door. Okay? That's what you do. You don't walk toward the mist and say, "What's going on out there? Is there anything in here?" I don't know what accent that is. That's so that was. And then I am obviously not a military strategist, so I don't know what I'm talking about here. But I'm going to say it anyway. Why would you put your most powerful weapons in this giant tower that can be reached from trebuchets? Again, I don't know where the trebuchets came from. They appeared on the battlefield. I don't recall seeing them in the encampment where the White Cloaks were, but apparently they were somewhere. And apparently the White Cloaks knew they'd put all the Damane in the tower somehow. I won't ask questions how they knew that, but they did. And so it just seems like putting all of your Damane in this one easily targetable area that is also pretty
smart.
Yeah, it doesn't seem very smart. It's very insecure, especially from giant boulders being flung at you.
Right.
And so so everything about the Shanshan just didn't make any sense. You kind of needed the Benny Hill music. And then they're going in like with just swords fighting among the streets and stuff against Aiel and White Cloaks and wolf people and whatnot, but they won't hurt, after shooting Elaine and wounding Elaine, they won't, go in for the finishing, whatever. So I guess it's a long way of saying, yeah, I think, you know what, I think you're onto something here. The only thing I'll say, two defenses of that, the writing of that would be, one, they're the Forerunners, so it's not, even though the White Cloaks did say there's 10,000 of them. Where were they? I didn't see 10,000.
I didn't see 10,000.
Maybe they were all in the boats that Moraine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which doesn't seem to do much good.
They're ready to get out of there already. Which again, if that's what they're doing, why are they all in the ships where there's not going to be a nautical assault on Falm? Of course, if there's going to be anyone attacking you, it's going to come from inland. Whatever. The only other thing I was going to say was. The Forsaken were kind of using them, so to a certain degree, like Turok didn't really have a lot of authority. I assume it was really all a Shamil manipulating things. So the Shanshan were kind of hollow at their core because they had all these inner workings that were being manipulated by Shamil and whatever.
Sure.
I'll stop defending the way that the writing handled them at the end. Okay. Enough pessimism. We gave three of us. Oh my God. We each gave her 3. So 3 favorite, strongest parts of the show in your opinion. Do you have 3, or do you need to think about your 3?
I have 1.
Okay.
For sure. So if you have 3 already, you can go, and then I'll think about mine.
This is probably going to be on, I would imagine, given the answers to other questions on your list. The Forsaken, some of the strongest aspects.
Mine
really
was just in general the bad guys.
The bad guys.
The bad guys are the best part.
The villains.
Yes.
Making them actual characters. And not like a lot of the Forsaken in the books where they show up and they're like, Luce Theron, we meet again. I will defeat you this time. Oh no, I'm dead. Excuse me. So I think they've done a great job really giving them characters in the show so far. And I imagine that they're going to continue to do so. So that's why, obviously, I'm very excited to see where it goes from there.
Yes.
I thought they really did not shy away from Egwene's storyline. And so even though they were kind of like Benny Hill villains in episode 8 in the middle of the battle, I thought for most of the season they did a good job depicting how awful, scary, horrifying, despicable the Shanshan are. Number 3 I struggle with, just to think off the top of my head. I mean, there's so many moments. I guess just book moments that really made me happy.
That was going to be one of mine too.
I thought even though I disagree with a lot, some of the setup to the book moments, like the Matt blowing the horn, it really worked for me. And there were for me a lot of moments I loved. It wasn't a actual book moment, but I loved the end of Egwene's story, and that they didn't have her spare her life, because I didn't think that was the character they set up. That she just killed her. I mean, in a brutal way. And so I thought that they didn't cop out and say, "Oh, but she's also merciful and compassionate." No, they went. They took that character. I think where that character was going in the story. So I think there were great moments throughout the season. I just wish a lot of those moments had better setup, because I think the payoffs are there, but they're not as impactful generally as they could be, because the way that they've gotten there is rushed or convoluted or illogical in a lot of ways. So those are my 3.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with 2 of those. One was definitely going to be the bad guys, because they were amazing during this whole season. So good. But I think that one of the things that I loved about that, attached to kind of like this bad guy idea, is just kind of how dark the season was, and how it almost it was a feeling of almost like the bad guys were losing throughout the entire thing. Almost, and that they were just being overcome and manipulated a little bit, and then at the end they obviously have their event.
You mean the good guys?
The good guys
were losing.
Losing, yes.
I think you said the bad guys. Your mind was still on the bad
sorry.
guy, the villains.
I just said the bad guys. And I think that's one of the things that was so made this season better than the first one, and made it feel a little more a little bit of urgency to it too.
There were stakes. It felt like there were real stakes.
There were a lot of stakes. The characters were just constantly facing things, I feel like. And the bad guys just seemed to be everywhere. Leandrin, she was in the tower. You're seeing black guys die in the tower. You got the Forsaken, but you don't know that some of them are Forsaken until they reveal themselves. It's just all over. And then the Seanchan, who are just obvious kind of bad guys who are coming to, rule, basically, take over, conquer. So I just thought that was what was a really great driving force of this season.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So I loved that part. And then
and your
I
third?
agree. There were a lot of great book moments too. So I agree with that. But my third, I'm gonna do something random off the wall. All the outfits this season.
For you, that's not that off the wall.
It's true. That's very true.
We usually get into costuming at some point in talking about shows and movies.
I was that was the one saving grace of Moiraine's storyline, is when she started getting her outfits back, because I was honey, those are amazing. And you got to see all of the different Aes Sedai outfits. So good. And so yeah, all the outfits were just whoever is in wardrobe was they got their budget and they were spending it.
Except for poor Matt. Poor Matt was still in the bathrobe he's been wearing since season 1.
He will always be in his bathrobe. It's gonna be in the same bathrobe until the end of time.
Think that the best thing about I think Nynaeve's accepted test was we finally got to see Matt in a different outfit.
That's true. That's very true.
Even if it was a fleeting moment, we finally got to see it. An honorable mention I didn't want to mention, even though I did forget my top 3, was the channeling was way better. I don't know if they got more money for their VFX or what, but probably. There was a soul to the channeling, and there was a uniqueness to the channeling, and just by virtue of differentiating weaves based on color. Just that small touch, I think, really made channeling pop. And also made it unique in the fantasy genre, I think, on TV and film. So I would want to throw that in there because I thought that was a really, really good upgrade from season 1, where everything was just very bland. And didn't look very magical. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. So, on a whole, how would you grade season 2?
Season 2, I would give it a 8. I would rate it high because I enjoyed it and I looked forward to it every single week. So that's good. So I would give it an 8. Mm-hmm.
I will give it a 7.5. Okay. Mainly because the Moraine land storyline just really dragged it down for me. Obviously not far. 7.5 is still really good, I think. The rush nature of the finale as well on top of that. So that's kind of why the 2 big things I mark it down for. But as you said, look forward to every episode. I've rewatched episodes, which I think I only rewatched 1 episode from season 1, which is the Dragon Reborn one, mainly because Logain and the actor that plays Logain is so captivating when he's on screen as that character. But what's funny is this has actually made me the season 2 is so good in my view. It's actually made me want to rethink and downgrade my view of season 1 because I think it's just monumentally better than season 1. Better. And I don't know if that's because of budget, if that's because there's no COVID, if that's because they didn't have to rewrite due to an actor leaving. I don't know, but this season, despite all my complaints and whatnot, gives me hope for season 3 and hopefully beyond season 3. Hopefully they'll get money to continue the story. Yeah. And so with that, let's talk briefly to close out the video. Season 3, which I think we're both looking forward to. I certainly am. I think you are as well, judging by your score of season 2. Yes. And so give me, let's stick with we like ranking things. Give me 3. It's not really a ranking, but give me 3 things that you think are going to happen in season 3.
Oh, there could be so many I don't know how much they can shove into a season because the 4th book is pretty jam packed with stuff.
It's a lot, but they don't have to deal with Tyr unless they just show it. It's almost like in media res, I think is the term where you just are dropped into the middle of action at the beginning of a movie or a video game or a show. True. Maybe it opens and they're in the Stone of Tyr fighting their way to Kalandor. I don't think that's going to happen, but
but you never know.
At this point, they've veered off of the book so much in so many ways. You never know.
That's true. That's true. There is so much stuff in book 4 that they could tackle. I mean, obviously all the Tyr things and the Kalandor. I want to see what Kalandor looks like.
Do you think Kalandor's going to be in season 3?
I would hope so.
I don't think so.
You don't think you'll see at least
not in season 3? Oh well, no. I don't. Unless it's a tease. So I think. Okay, we've already gone off the conceit of this question. That's okay. Let's have a freewheeling conversation of season 3.
Free flowing.
They've got to go to the Aiel waste. And so you'd mentioned earlier the Aiel in this. Yep. It sounded like you approved of the depiction of the maidens that we got. And it was a really good introduction. I thought, other than them beating the absolute crap out of Avienda, which was a little strange. I understand it was all about Jito and whatnot.
The Jito.
It was, but
it just seemed out of hand. Like they didn't really set it up for that moment because you don't know
Yeah.
anything about the Aiel at this moment.
Yeah.
And so it just felt very like left field, like what? is
We're
happening? But okay.
Perrin, because even Perrin's like, what is happening
Yeah,
right
literally,
now?
the viewers are like, unless you read the
Yeah.
books. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
but
a little
it's very,
strange. But anyway, other than that, yeah. Good introduction, right?
I thought they were great though. Yeah, I loved them. They were fantastic.
That was a little weird. They're that far away from the Isle, or they're on the other side of the continent. But whatever. No Gaul yet.
Details. No,
They swapped Gaul and Avienda in that scene. Are you okay with that? A lot of people in the fandom are really concerned. That means there's no Gaul, and there are a lot of Gaul fans.
I mean, I like Gaul. I like him. I like him, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, from a show perspective, I could see it making sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see it happening. So I don't hate it, but.
So I think they're clearly doing the Two Rivers next season because they set it all up with Dane Bornhold, with Perrin axing Daddy Bornhold. And Bane and Sheed are there with Perrin, so they're prepared to go to the Two Rivers. They have to introduce Fael somehow though in the next season. They've allegedly Fael's been cast, but Bane and Sheed are there. I think in some way they're going to run into more Aiel before they go to Ruidian. I think the two big things we're getting Ruidian. They're going to the Waste. Rand's going to the Waste. He's going to go to Ruidian. And he's going to end up in a conflict with the Shido. Because I'm trying to remember the fourth book. Is that with Couladin and whatnot? After Rand goes to Ruidian and he's declared the Karakarn.
Yes.
And then there's I think the Shido break away under the Couladin. And then there's a big fight with Couladin. Is the fight with Couladin in the fourth one? I can't remember. Did you come across? Have they fought yet?
Yes, I believe it's at the end, right? Where he pretends to declare that he's the dragon.
I think so.
And then I'm pretty sure that's at the end.
Because I assume that's going to be Rand's storyline, and then everybody around Rand in the books will be with him in that storyline next season.
2 years from now.
Oh, God, not next semester. I actually wish it was next semester. Anyway, and then the other big one's going to be the Two Rivers. I think we're going to get the Battle of Two Rivers with Perrin and everyone in his orbit from the books as well.
So nothing from Tyr?
Nothing from Tyr. And this is where I think, if you're going to get anything from Tyr, I think it's going to be a post-credit, or it's going to be the Moghedian Lanfear scene of next season, where Couladin's been defeated. Most of the Aiel are now under the Dragon Banner, following Rand. Perrin's pushed back the White Cloaks and the Shadow Spawn from the Two Rivers, and now the Two Rivers have joined him. Manetheren has risen again out of the Two Rivers. And so these are going to be two big victorious moments. The thing is, before I get there, so I think what you might see then is cut to the Stone of Tyr, where Kalendor is hovering in the air, and one of the Forsaken walking up to it and saying, "Soon, loose Theron, soon," or something like that. Face? I don't know. Interestingly, they don't have the Forsaken that's in the Stone of Tyr. So we don't think they do. So they haven't named all the Forsaken. So there are 8 Forsaken: Lanfear, Ishamael, Moghedian, Samael has been named, and Grendel. So we've got 5 Forsaken named, confirmed. So we have 3 left. I think it's going to be Asmodean as one, because I think they're going to follow that storyline. He's going to be in next season teaching Rand. I think we'll have Ravine, who I was telling you about the other day, and I think we're going to have Damodred, who you don't know Damodred, where you're at in the books. And so the Forsaken, the Dragon Reborn, and Stone of Tyr was Balal. And so I don't think he's going to be one of the 3 Forsaken. Now, you can move Samael into that role, kind of. But that's the only way I think you get Kalendor in Tyr. Or my crazy outlandish theory that maybe they'll just drop us into Tyr, that Rand, in between seasons, has amassed an Aiel army and has marched on Tyr for whatever reason. All of a sudden we start the season in the halls of the Stone of Tyr battling for Kalendor. And then you're off and running with the story.
Yeah.
So sorry if you were looking forward to Tyr, I don't think you're getting it next season.
Well, it's funny you say that because Tyr is technically what takes place next.
It is? Yeah.
Timeline. So technically, Tyr should come first and all that jazz, and then
if you're following the books, but they've deviated pretty.
If you're following the books, but they have deviated quite a bit. So I can see it going both ways, but I hope we at least get a glimpse of it because that would, I don't know, be more interesting to me. Because it's just so. I mean, as a viewer who knows the book, obviously, if you're just watching the show. You wouldn't even know Tyr that whole thing
because we've had a glimpse. We've had a glimpse of the stone from the first season, in Swan's cold open. It's way in the background when she's on the river with her father. But so we've only seen that. No Calendar. We haven't even had a reference to Calendar. Calendar might not even be in the show. They may have just cut it because they don't. I mean, Calendar doesn't really. Well, oh no. Oh, you froze for a second. I was like, oh no, I lost. Then he's out because no Calendar. She's, I'm out of here.
Damn, rage quit.
I want to see the sword and the stone.
I want the burning sword.
No.
I want the burning sword.
So yeah, but who knows? Maybe it will be. Maybe that'll be part of the storyline. But I just the whole for me like the Ruidian stuff and the schism in the Aiel is very good. It's critical for the whole story, and it's also to give it its due. You have to spend quite a bit of time. I mean, that to me is like a season-long storyline, or should be.
Yeah,
because I think the first 2 episodes are going to probably be like the beginning of the Shadow Rising, where they're somewhere, and Moraine's trying to get him to do something that she wants him to do, that she thinks he needs to do as a dragon. He's like, I don't want to be dancing on the strings of the White Tower, blah, blah, blah. They're probably going to be accosted by Shadow Spawn. So I think they're set up to replay out mainly what happens at the beginning of the Shadow Rising, just in a different locale.
Sure.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I think you're going to get the coup. I think you'll get the coup. I think that'll be one of the
too. They're setting it up pretty well.
Episodes. It'll be episode probably 6. Isn't episode 6 when every time? Oh no, Swan was in 7 this time. Never mind. I thought like every year they're gonna have Swan show up in the same episode, even though she was in episode 6 briefly. But was she in episode 7? No, she wasn't in the first season.
No, I don't think so.
6. So I think for me those are the 3 big things that are going to happen. You're going to have the Battle of Two Rivers, Ruidian, and the coup. And outside of Lanfear and Asmodean, I have no idea what they're going to do with. Well, okay. Here's a question for you: do you think they're going to send Nynaeve and Elaine off to Tanchico? Because I think isn't that where they go in
Tanchico to find the
Shadow Rising?
Yeah, the weapon.
The Black Aja.
Yeah, the weapon. To go against the Black Aja, but then they also discover the weapon that could.
And Moghedien, right? You said that. I think you said that earlier.
And Moghedien, that's when you get that Moghedien moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like since they introduced Moghedien, they kind of have to keep that somehow. Even if it's not even exactly that storyline, maybe but I imagine that something like that will happen. I think. I could see that. It already sounds like a lot in one season when you think about it. You're like, oh my god, here we go. The characters are going everywhere again. All I know is the one thing that needs to happen, and I will riot. And complain.
Okay, I want to hear this.
If they don't do this, is Matt has to go through the red door frame into those. Those are like some of my favorite pages to read when he goes through those and encounters the creepy snake people and the creepy whatever other people that had like the vampire teeth looking things. Oh my god, those were such good moments. And
do you think it's happening? Do you think they're going to?
God, I hope so. There's a part of me that like says they probably won't, just because like it's so like.
Well, they've made.
I feel like.
But this season, they've alluded to those things. I mean, so in the tea trip he had, there was the vision of him hanging, which is a reference to that part. Then he built his halberd spear thing, the dagger,
his little spear thing. Yep.
And so one of the questions people have asked is like, so is he's going to keep? Is this now his weapon? Like, is he's going to be walking around the dagger of Shadow Logoth tied by rag to this stick. And that's his Ashandarai, or whatever it's called. And so they've set it up where he said, like, I remember everything when he blew the horn. So does that mean he also has all of his memories now?
Yeah.
And so they're hinting strongly, I think, they're not going to do the Finn and the whatever they're called, the snake people and the foxes, the foxes and the snakes. They're hinting strongly they're not doing that. And I'd agree with you. I would be really disappointed if they didn't.
It's just such a cool.
It's unique to Wheel of Time too.
Yeah, the worlds and like it's just it was just such a. I remember when I first read it in that moment, and I was like, "This is so cool!" Like it just made the books super cool and different, and just it pulled me in. It pulled me into the story more. And I was like, I want to know more about that kind of stuff. And
they also, because that's how he gets the fox head medallion as well. It becomes very important throughout the books for Matt and the world actually. And so if they don't have them, they've got to somehow get that in. And I don't want it better not be something like the dagger where he hears Pat and Fane whistling, sees a shadow, and he walks into a room and there's this chest. They better not, I stubbed my toe on this. What is this? Oh, look at this. It's Tyron Real.
This is a cool necklace.
Protection from channeling. There you go. Anything else you're open to see?
Hope. That's the one thing that I'm like, please. I mean, outside of the stuff that we already talked about, those are all really the cool things that I mean, the Two Rivers battle will be interesting to see how they pull that off. If they introduce the wolf dream in how like Perrin sees it, it'll be interesting to see if they do that. I don't know. There's just so much to do. It will be interesting to see what they put into one season. If it will only be 8 episodes again, or will they add more after seeing?
God, I wish they'd give them 2 extras. I wish they'd give them 10.
Yeah, even
they need it.
2 extra would. Yeah, even 2 extra would do a world of wonder. I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I need more 3,000 years ago. I need more Age of Legends content. I need it. I need it. So, and I get the impression that's kind of that's like their shtick on episode 8. The episode 8 cold opens always loose there and making bad decisions or doing awful things or being menacing or intimidating in some way. So I think we're going to continue that. And so I guess I'll also say I assume at some point they're going to have Rand start to hear or see Lews Therin. Because I always thought that was an interesting dynamic in the books where Lews Therin's in his head
like
throughout a lot of the books.
Blend personalities. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that, the easiest way to do it would literally just be a hallucination or an apparition talking to him in the room. And he sees him just sitting there, or he's behind, like in a horror movie, he just kind of is in the hallway behind him or something. I don't know. So hopefully that's my hope. I want more Lews Therin. And through that, I'll then get more Age of Legends content, which is what I am here for. And I will never say no to more Age of Legends content. So, okay. Well, we've been talking for a long time, but it was an action-packed season. It was a great season. Looking forward to season 3. Please get season 3 to us quick. Amazon
2025
creators 2025. Oh my God. Oh, anyway. Well, on that depressing note, where can listeners, viewers interested in seeing us talk about Wheel of Time, talk about other things in the pop culture sphere, other fandoms that we are a part of, where can they find our content, Denny?
You guys can find us on our YouTube channel, is primarily where we be hanging out lately. So that is at the Pop Docs. And then we also release a podcast occasionally. It's been a little slower, as my lovely Joe
Life
events
have come up.
New jobs, travel, work. It's just been a little bit crazy. But you can we'll release podcasts occasionally, kind of wherever you can find podcasts. And then also on the X Twitter at the Pop Docs. And then on Instagram at the Pop Docs Pod.
There you go. And if you like this video, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And jump into the comments below. Let us know what you thought about this finale, if you had seen it, and what you are looking for in Season 3, to the extent you're looking forward to Season 3. And I hope that is a bunch of us, because I want to see this story to its conclusion. But for this video, the Pop Docs Clinic is officially closed.
Toodles!